Okay, well, my name is Jennifer Nimmrichter, and we are at the Sheepwalk Ranch and Fiber Mill, and also home to Suzu's Woolworks, which was a shop that I owned a long time ago in California and brought here to Texas. And we are in Bandera, Texas, and in the Texas Hill Country. Every mill has fiber waste, and one of the things that we're trying to explore is how we can repurpose all of that waste. If the customer doesn't want it, then we'll take it out and put it into compost. So we actually have a large compost pile that's been working for about 3 years now, and we did that long before we even had a fiber mill, only because we still had sheep and I didn't need everything that came off the sheep. So one of the things we've been doing is tree huggers on the wet felt machine. So we take especially the wools that I'd love to make yarn out of everything. So in this instance, the yellow is not the deterrent. It was just not a quality enough fiber for me to turn it into a yarn for weaving. So we just went straight. And then this would be an example of leftovers. And then we give instructions on how to do this. So the reason I want to talk about wool in agriculture is because wool actually has the ability to neutralize soil. And in Texas, at least on our property, we have two types. We have the iron-rich clay loams, or clay soil, or silt, and then we have silt soil over there that's more of a black earth, and each one presents its own set of issues. And so with adding wool in directly, we're able to take those two soil types and make them almost even Steven, right, when it's time to plant. And you can always add nutrients with your wool, but the other added benefit to it, of course, is water retention. So when we had the freezes coming finally in January, we went into the orchard, cut these up, wrapped them around the tree at the base, soaked them with water so that they got a plenty deep watering, but then there was additional water as it needed to be released as the water started to thaw. And we didn't have to worry so much about running out there and trying to save their lives. But the other thing too is the wool will biodegrade into the soil. And as it biodegrades, you can always go back and add more, but this is a more natural way to aerate your soil once you get it going, and it'll help to create a healthy topsoil as well. And so what you're seeing here is Navajo Turo that didn't make the cut for yarn or for rug making or anything else. It was just perfect for garden stuff. So we usually have a mixed bag like this. Now this is actually going to be clean outs. We'll go through, we'll try to get anything that doesn't look like it's supposed to be there, and as we're sorting through it, then we'll take that and mix it in. And sometimes I'll put it in the chicken coop because the chickens are the best for kind of tearing it open and making it more easy to use and mix in. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and throw right into all of our different compost stations. If it's alpaca, we definitely mix it in because it'll want to blow away. But the other added benefit is the birds. So other aspects of nature need it. We're putting it out there for them, and what we need stays behind. And so other thing I've been doing is so that I can kind of demonstrate, of course, and I'm going to leave the leaves in there because the leaves are fantastic for making a good topsoil, is I started with the nasty clay soil that we have over there. It's iron rich and red, and my initial wool that I put in actually is already gone and went into that soil. So I went back and added more because now I want to actually observe to see how long it's going to take for it to break down through that, and all I'm doing is creating a healthy topsoil now. So when I take it out of here, I can actually take it out of squares, put my seeds in it, and use this as a seed starter. But because I chose the soil from the other side of the property, now whatever I use this for will probably also do very well over on that side of the property. So one of the things I want to do is take you for a walk so that you can actually see what I'm talking about in action. There is a big divide. You've got wool pellets, which is great, but the problem with the wool pellet machines is if you're not buying the original, what you're going to run into is metal issues, shavings falling into your wool pellet. So now you've got contamination. All of that stuff has to be tested. So even though we will eventually get a wool pellet maker here and teach people how to use it so that you can maximize, the wool waste or the bio waste from the sheep, I prefer to just take the whole fleece and just throw it right out there. So if you're ready, we'll go walk to the garden on the other side of the chicken coop. Okay, So in this bag, I'm going to be giving these away for anyone who wants them, because technically, especially in the state of Texas, because it's considered a bio-waste, we want to be careful how we give it away. And so this is all, they've all been skirted. We know there's no fecal matter in there, but that's not going to hurt it. The sheep's fecal matter, or the poop, is very hot. So you never want to direct sow that into the garden. You want to make sure that goes into your hot compost and has a year to cool down, and then another year to really go back in and cool down even further. But you'll notice that wherever the sheep are, we don't go and rake up what they've done, because the sun will dry it out, and as long as it dries out, it'll naturally biodegrade, and that will put nitrogen and other nutrients back into the soil. So we're going to walk that way, and I apologize for the long walk, but it's Texas. Everything's big in Texas. So what got us started on doing this is I just don't like to throw things in the trash, especially when I know that it can be repurposed for anything else, like in the garden. But my first trick was I would give it to the chickens and use it in their coop, and I realized it's a great insulator. And then a beekeeper came to me and asked me if he could have me make him batting to insulate his huts for his bees up in Colorado. And then I thought, well, okay, let's research some more. In order for me to make insulation, it would be a really hard process. And so by just going back to the basics and looking at regenerative farming, all you have to do really is just put it down on the ground and let it do its job. So we're going to walk this way, and hopefully you're not going to trip over anything, and I apologize, it's a farm. All experimental always. Don't hit your head on branches. The wind has been not our friend today, but we are literally direct sowing onto here, and you'll see we are so exposed to the north winds that when it comes through, nothing stays on the ground, but the wool does. And so we've been cleaning out the stalls. We bring all of that in here. So you've got your green mixed with your nitrogen rich wool. And when we're ready, we'll take off the excessive wool, go back and put it into compost, and then be able to start putting our seeds and putting in our established plants into the ground. And what we'll have is a soil and not a dirt. And that's what our goal was in the first place.
Okay, wool has a lot of carbon in it, and chicken manure has a lot of nitrogen. Does it actively start to break down while it's here in the dirt?
Absolutely, and that's the one thing that I want to explore is different wool types break down at different speeds. And so I was really surprised to see, and it could be also the soil itself. If it has a lot of iron in it, it may force that wool to break down differently than this, which is more of a silt, coming from the river, so it's basically going to be more of a black gold, black earth. And so you'll see that it's here on the surface, but where we put it down, it hasn't stuck to the earth, whereas with that red, it actually sunk in and got stuck in there. But what it's doing is it's actually keeping things warm, and eventually we'll have a nice healthy layer. And from what I understand, because we just started doing this about 2 months ago with leftover fleece, it could take up to 3 to 4 months before we start to see any results. And of course, we need the rain. So the more moisture, the more we can get it to really settle down, the better it is. And we really try to make sure that we don't have anything in there that's going to be hot. So with the chickens, we can't direct sow with chickens either. They have to go into the compost, the big one, and then we let them cool down, turn it. So the compost that we've developed now is actually ready to be used. And we'll just turn it, get it separated, and start a new compost. And then anything from here that is overflow, we will definitely take over to there. But the other thing we were considering is, because we know we have erosion, is to take the excessive stuff that we have, roll it over, and now let that be a barrier against the water from going away and down the hill over there. And that the other issue we have, and we've been talking about this, is actually retaining the nutrients and in our topsoil, because I've invested probably over $2,000 in just excessive, beautiful, highly, potent soil enhancers, and I can't find them anymore. they're gone after one season. So they're definitely sinking fast. And so we have to find a way to create a more solid top layer so that we're not losing all those nutrients. And I think that this is definitely going to be the answer. At least what I've seen all over the world, this has been a winner. And it's, you know, when you compare apples to oranges, a wool pellet, you know, I'm looking at 200 pounds for $25. Well, 200 pounds is only going to cover a portion of this. So again, we're going to be at $1,000 more of investment, whereas I can find my local farmer, find my fiber mill, which is me, and then say, okay, what have you got left over? And it doesn't have to be in the grease. It can be washed and carded and the leftover coming out of the vacuum and everything. It's really about the proteins that are in that fiber that help to break down and help to neutralize that soil.
So wool's a great insulator. And how do you think that the putting the wool on the ground gives a little bit more insulating capacity, either
Absolutely.
to extend your spring or?
Absolutely. And we have 2 growing seasons here in the hill country. So I wouldn't put my pumpkins down in the springtime, whereas up north they would put them down in the spring and then hope for the harvest in the fall. We have tomatoes, we can put them in the ground, but they may not fruit in the springtime. They'll fruit in the fall as long as we keep adding water and keep the nutrients going. One of the things that I learned when I lived in Austria is the farmers always put down a really hot soil enhancer, and they usually use seagull poop. So they'll use that because it burns and it stinks, but what they're doing is they're keeping that topsoil warm, so when it comes time for spring planting, they actually will, George, they will actually have something to work with, and it helps to keep it moving underneath. Everything is still moving throughout the winter time.